Welcome to the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Join Jason as he explores the many ways to unlock personal growth, mindfulness, and spiritual transformation. So now, please welcome the host of Transformative Pathways, Jason Doby.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Doby, founder of Transformative Pathways Life Coaching. Thank you so much for joining us today. The topic for today's episode is understanding self-sabotage with our guest, Ashley Cooper, who is joining us today from Chicago. Ashley is a life coach specializing in stress relief and nervous system regulation, with focus on anxiety and panic attack recovery. Her journey into coaching began with her own personal transformation and an unexpected pivot from a career in pastry arts. Through this experience, she learned the power of creating a life aligned with her true self, trusting her intuition, and breaking free from the need for external validation. Now, through her 12-week coaching program, Ashley helps clients understand their stress responses, reconnect with themselves, and build lasting resilience. Ashley, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor to be on your show. And thank you
Awesome.
for that warm introduction.
Amazing. I think I heard your dog in the background there. How many
I'm
dogs
like,
did
of
you say you
course,
have?
great timing. 3.
3 dogs. Wow. That's
Yes,
got to be a
yes,
handful.
it is. I put music on for them. They had a chew, they've had breakfast, and still they love to chime in.
That's awesome. All right, Ashley, to start things off, I'd love to hear a little bit about your personal journey and how you became a life coach.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as you mentioned in that kind intro, I did start off thinking I would be a pastry chef as my full-time career. I started a business, I went to school, and I kind of realized that was not the life for me. Very deep into that, actually. So it took me a while to really tap into my intuition and know that like it was saying stop, this is not where you're supposed to be. And it actually took kind of a mental breakdown for me to really pivot my life, and I've learned the hard way a lot. It takes me kind of a lot of hard lessons to truly step into my power. But 10 years later, I am thriving, and it's I'm here, and I've started to blossom. And after I lost 2 jobs in the corporate world, and I was searching for another job in the corporate world, I was like, it is again that signal. It was like, stop. What are you doing? Pivot. Really tap into what you know to be true about yourself, and that life is not for you. What do you like to do? You know, I like helping people. I like helping people find their own intuition, learning to listen to their own calling. And I just happened to stumble upon coaching. Like I was looking for something um, where I could work for myself, where I wasn't bound to the confines of anyone else. I wanted to determine my own destiny. Um, and I had never even heard about life coaching until I started just doing some deep dives in Google searches. And I started school, and the first day I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And ever since, my life kept blossoming and blossoming. And it's just been such a tremendous road of not only healing, but discovering myself. And it's been so beautiful helping other people discover themselves as well.
That's amazing. I love that story. You have a similar story to me. I don't know if you know, but I was a chef for over 20 years. I was a
Oh my gosh.
professional chef, and I had the same thing. I kind of just started listening to my inner voice, and I ignored it for 15 years. And I knew that this wasn't what I was meant to do, but I just kept pushing through until finally one day I just said, I can't do this anymore. And that was only 2 years ago. But
Yeah.
Definitely challenging. And pastries, what made you get into being a pastry chef?
The creativity. I really enjoy art. I like painting and making cakes and decorating cakes and getting to make little fondant minis and doing all that stuff really allowed me to express my creativity in a different way. Um, I didn't realize how stressful that way would be, but yeah, I love culinary though. I took a few culinary classes as well, and it was really fun.
Hmm. I think that's how we connected. I think it was one of your posts when you were
Yeah,
baking bread or something, and then amazing.
yeah. Last
That's
fall.
awesome.
Kind of warn it. I remember that post. I was warning people to, um, just go with caution if you are taking a hobby and turning it into a career. Yes, that was where we connected.
Amazing. That's amazing. Awesome. All right. Now, on the topic of self-sabotage, to start things off, could you explain a little bit about what self-sabotage is or what it means to you?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. So I think what it means to me has definitely shifted within the last even 3 or 4 months. I had this kind of epiphany, like it clicked for me recently that the way that we look at healing and change as a collective is normally geared towards self war, right? Self sabotage means that we've done something, um, you know, consciously to get in our own way. And often we are very quick to blame ourselves or to go towards the negative. Um, and our nervous system, learning our nervous system is rooted in survival, helped me pivot this and the way that we experience trauma, right? Our brains want to keep us alive. It's wired for survival. And our brains are also very lazy, right? And once it finds a way to survive, it likes to lock into that. And this doesn't mean that we don't want more for ourselves. This doesn't mean that we don't want to grow or learn or change. It means that our nervous system has found a way to survive, and it needs trust and it needs patience and it needs self compassion in order to learn to be safe in a new way of being. And I started to, instead of say I self sabotaged, I started to pivot this and say, like, what if we say I self protected instead, right? We need to go deeper. We need to just stop the self-war. I want to stop the self-war, and this is a way to do that. So when people say like, why do I keep sabotaging myself, right? What's really happening is their nervous system is keeping them in the most familiar state that it knows. And breaking free of that is going to take compassion and not not getting down on yourself. So
Very interesting. So you're shifting the narrative from a negative self-talk to more of a positive one.
yeah, yeah, it's not self-sabotage. Your brain is not trying to ruin your progress, right? It's trying to keep you in a space where it understands the normal, right? And that's why like thinking positive isn't always just enough, right? There's a whole
Hmm.
topic we can go into on toxic positivity. Um,
Hmm.
that's not what this is. This is just simply recognizing that you part of you wants to grow and learn and change, and part of you is like, hold on a minute, there's not safety there. I'm not ready for that yet. And like I said, it takes a mindset shift, yes, but it also, you need healthy ways to release that stored trauma as well, and healthy ways to make yourself feel safe in the new situation. And it is possible.
Okay. Interesting. Could you give me an example of, one of the shifts you did from your own life?
Yeah, sure, sure. Absolutely. So it actually, uh, I can tap into. now looking backward, tapping into the corporate job that I was looking into. It was my inner intuition saying, don't do this. Um, but starting my own business is something I've always wanted to do. This is actually the third one that I've started.
Nice.
And something's always happened. I started a pastry business, I started a dog sitting business, but I digress. Um, Corporate is safe, right? Corporate, you get a paycheck, no matter how draining it might be, no matter how miserable you might be, it's a paycheck, right? So after I lost my first job in the corporate world from mass layoffs, I started the next one and I was so miserable. It was hard to get out of bed every day. And I quit that one. And then I was going to look for another one. And I'm like, what are you doing? And it was like, why am I sabotaging myself? Kind of a thing. I did have that thought, that line of thought crossed me. I'm like, why, why am I like, I want to start my own business. Why am I going back to corporate? Well, it's because what if I fail? And also, things that can stop people from going after the things they want can also be fear of success. And I think that was also
Mhm.
part of like what responsibility is going to come from this. Like, I have a comfortable life, it's a paycheck. So I was like, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I can't run my own business. All of those inner critic voices started chatting away. And I was like, it really takes a pause and a think. You have to sit down with yourself. It has to be intentional, right? You have to consciously make the choice to heal and change the way you think. Um, and that's exactly, I was like, I've had enough, like the veil lifted, and I'm like, this can't go on. So I finally was like, I can do this. I've done it twice. I already kind of know the ins and outs of starting a business. Just go
Mhm.
for it. And so it was like you said, that push through that really was the foundational point for me to pivot those self-sabotage thoughts. Um, and yeah, I don't call it self-sabotage anymore. It still feels it since I started saying self-protection, it feels weird to say self-sabotage because I don't believe in that anymore.
Okay, interesting. Self-protection is what you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, I didn't self-sabotage. I self-protected.
Interesting. And what do you think are some other examples of self-sabotage that most people struggle with?
Starting a fitness routine, maybe. Starting like a healthy habits routine. You have your routine laid out that you want to do. You have the workout clothes, you have the gym membership, right? You have the meals to prep, and then when it comes time, you find yourself scrolling on your phone or hitting snooze instead and saying, "I'll just start tomorrow," right? Um, but yeah, that's another big one that I have seen where people say, I just sabotaged because I don't actually. And yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. When I think of self-sabotage for me, the first thing that comes up is I used to smoke a lot of pot. So I think I used to
Mm,
self-sabotage myself with that a lot. And I remember times when I would wake up in the morning before going to work and I would get high or even on my way driving to work and I'd know like I shouldn't be doing this, but I do it
mm,
anyway for that little
mm,
quick dopamine rush. And then I get to
mhm,
work and have a meeting with my boss and I'm stoned out of my mind. Like
yeah.
that's the kind of self-sabotage. Um,
Hmm.
that's what kind of comes up for me, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So I'm curious then, what do you think your brain was protecting you from in those moments?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I used to just use it to hide from reality as an
Mm,
escape,
yeah, yeah. That
which
makes
is
sense.
interesting. We'll get into this. Like I quit. So I quit
Mm-hmm.
drinking. Uh, I've been sober for over 6 years now, but I quit drinking the first time like over 10 years ago. And then I used to smoke pot as kind of to keep me from drinking again. And
Mm-hmm.
then I quit smoking pot about over a year ago or 2 years ago for the first time. And it took me a good 2 years to finally kick it. And the amazing thing was I quit for 6 months one time. And then the little voice in my head said, told me to go outside and have a little puff or whatever. So I did. And then instantly I'm back in, I'm back in it like 24/7. It's the only thing I can think about. And I couldn't stop doing it. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, I just went 6 months without doing this and I was fine. And then now I'm right back in it. So it was very interesting. And then I went through that cycle for a while. And I the last time I was in it, I really investigated it. And I'm like, hey, what is really going on here underneath all this stuff?
Yeah.
And then I kind of came to the conclusion that I was just hiding from reality. Once I was in that little place, I felt
Mm.
safe and I didn't want to, it was like an escape. And
Yeah.
then, the day after, say wake up the next day and I say it's like it takes 3 days for me to feel normal again.
Yeah.
And getting through that uncomfortable 3 days is the hardest part, because you just want to go back into, I call it like my security blanket. I just want to go into my little blanket where I'm warm and cozy and nothing's going to bug me. But that was my biggest self-sabotage. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that you were able to recognize that it was keeping you safe, though, right?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't really keeping me safe. It was
I mean, your nervous system's way
I
of
guess so,
keeping
yeah.
you safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because you were used to living that way for so long.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
yeah, yeah, just acknowledging that it's your mind trying to protect you is such a huge pivot. At least it was for me in my healing. It was such a huge pivot because, like, you think that you have things handled, right? And then, like, stress comes in or trauma comes in, even. And when trauma comes in, trauma comes busting in with no regard, right? And it comes in and cracks our being and our soul and the very foundational concept of who we are, and it forces us to shift into a whole new way of being rather quickly. And we've and it shifts who we've built ourselves to be, right? And so our nervous system grasps very quickly into new ways of healing, and this is something that I'm trying to learn right now is the rapidness that our nervous system clings to safety and trauma versus why it takes so long to cling to safety and healing. And I really think that it's just negative becomes our default setting, right? And yes, like I said, we need the mindset shifts, but we also need ways to release this trauma. But our our thriving brain, why I like kind of lost my train of thought here. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But creating safety before you create change is really the underlying message here too. You need to create safety for your nervous system. Um, and it takes patience and an intentional action, right? We need to we need to be intentional about the ways that we choose to heal and tune into our own light. And I think that we're worth that pivot of changing the narrative and worth the time it takes to program your light in a way that feels empowering versus like you're constantly at war with yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. And yeah, I like that you brought up the nervous system. And what are some ways you recommend to create safety with your nervous system before healing? That's something that I never did, and I'm just kind of
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like on this journey, the more you go, the more you look at things from a different perspective or more deeper perspective. It's like I'm learning the same thing over and over and over again, but just from a different lens. So the nervous
Yes,
system is something I've really been paying attention to and focusing on my own nervous system. So I'm interested what you have to say about that for sure.
absolutely. Yeah. So, I really tuned in. So I used to, not used to, I've dealt with anxiety and panic disorder since I was a teenager. And so learning to create safety, um, the first tool that I ever learned actually was the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Have you ever heard of that
Mhm. Yes.
method? Okay, great. Excuse me. So, um, for anyone listening who doesn't know what the 5-4-3-2-1 method is, it's a grounding technique that you can use to come out of dysregulation and help yourself feel grounded and safe in the space that you're in, kind of back to reality, if you will. And you uh, notice 5 things that you can see in the room. What 4 things that you can Oh man, my memory's failing me. What is the 4?
I always
4 things
forget.
that 4 things that you can smell, 3 things that you can hear. Hang on. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. This is why I want to Okay, so 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear. You're tapping into all your senses here.
Yeah.
3 things that you can smell, 2 things that you can touch, and 1 thing that you can taste. There
Right.
you
Yeah.
go. Yes, so that's the 5-4-3-2-1 method, and it is something that you can do without anybody even noticing that you're doing it, right? You can just kind of deep breathe, breathe in a rhythm of calm, and look around the room, really tap into your senses, bring yourself back into your foundation, back into reality. Um, and also, I really do recommend starting with journaling. If people want to start to tap into changing the narrative for themselves, start asking yourself these questions. Um, I invite them to stop asking, why do I keep sabotaging myself? And instead ask, what has my nervous system learned to be safe? Because once you understand that, the easier it is to shift little by little. And that's how you create change that actually lasts. So start asking yourself the question, what is my brain trying to protect me from? And you can keep going a little bit deeper. Um, and yeah, yeah. Before I lose my train of thought again, I'm going to stop it
Oh, I love that. And so the 5-4-3-2-1 method, you would do that, when you're starting to feel anxious or notice that
there.
your
Yeah.
baseline is shifting.
Yeah, I like that. And I also like box breathing, which is you breathe in for 4 seconds, you pause at the top of your breath for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds. And I also like to do a round of 10 of those really quick. That's also another simple thing you can do without anyone really noticing.
Nice. Yeah, and on the topic of stress and anxiety and panic attacks, I can totally relate to that. Being a chef for so long, I used to have really bad anxiety, like 24/7. Anxiety was my baseline,
Yeah.
and panic attacks. I remember, I'd always have some sort of panic attacks, but after COVID, it got really, really bad. I would wake up in the morning with panic attacks. Going from the restaurant being closed for a couple of years to having to do weddings and all these functions again, and I was just I was just a mess, and I didn't know, I wasn't practicing like the 5-4-3-2-1 method. I wish I knew that back then. But
What were you practicing? Oh, go
one
ahead.
thing that really helped me, I actually meditation was kind of my biggest thing. I do meditation every morning, and then just practice mindfulness throughout the day. Um, I read a Thich Nhat Hanh book about fear, I think it was, and he used to say, like, just kind of talk to it. When I would have anxiety, I would just, instead of pushing it away, because I used to get anxiety about having anxiety, and it would just build on top of it. And I would kind of just talk to myself and say like, I'm having anxiety. I know I'm having anxiety. And he teaches something to like, kind of hold it like it's a baby, like you would hold a little baby and give it compassion and love. So that's something that I kind of did. And the other thing that really helped me, I actually went and saw a therapist because it was so bad. Um, and she recommended that I do these muscle tense and relax meditation. So I did that religiously every day before I went to work, and I find that really helped me. And it's just, I'm sure you know what it is. It's like a body scan. You go through the whole body, and you just tense and relax all the different muscles in your body. Then after that, you just feel amazing. It's like all the anxiety rushes from your body. I don't know exactly what it does, but that was really helpful for me. And um, my anxiety hasn't really been that bad, but it still crops up every now and again. Starting a new business and doing this podcast has been really challenging for me to work through. And actually, I was telling my wife this morning, just last week. So I'm launching my program, the Journey Within, my 12-week program. Um, it starts at the end of March, and last week I sent out my first 4 contracts to my first 4 clients, and I was in a state of anxiety all week, and almost to the point where I couldn't do it. And I work with business coaches as well, and we met last week, and I said, I'm scared to send out these contracts. And my mentor Haley, she said, "Isn't it amazing how our brains work? You have 4 people that already said yes, and you're talking yourself out of why that they're not going to want to join your program." And then that gave me a little perspective shift. And it was just fear. I don't know what it was. It was just fear. My first time doing it, my first time signing the contract, I was afraid they were going to change their mind. I was afraid that they wouldn't be able to afford it, or they wouldn't have time. I came up with every excuse in the world. And it's amazing. I was telling my wife this morning how I feel this week compared to last week. Last week, the narrative in my mind was no one's going to want to sign up. These guys aren't going to be able to afford it. And, this week I sent the contracts. One client has already signed and paid. And the other guys are just trying to figure out their financial stuff. But my mindset this week is totally shifted to the point where, like, those guys that are trying to figure out their money stuff, I know they're going to be in the program for sure. And we're going to figure out a way to do it. But it's just amazing the shift from last week to this week. And I think just like pushing through that change something for me. I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but
No, not really. Actually, I think you're talking exactly about those quote unquote self-sabotage voices that creep
yeah.
in. And those are your self-protection voices. Like, what were they trying to protect you from? And I love that. I'm really curious. When did you notice that shift for you? Like, from turning anxiety into like confidence, where you're like, yeah, I know it. I know these guys are
When
in.
did I notice that shift? I guess it was on Sunday. So I sent the contracts last week on Thursday. And then even on Sunday morning, I sent the contracts. I sent everyone a message like, hey, just sent the contract over. Let me know if you have any questions. Um, and then Sunday, again, I sent a follow-up because I haven't heard from everyone. And in my mind, all these things going, no one's going to want to work with you, all this stuff. And then one of the guys actually called me, and we had a conversation. The other guy, 2 of the people that I know, 2 of the people that are joining are people that I know from my past. So I already have a relationship with them. And the other guy called me. So just talking with the 2 of them, and they were in. People are busy.
Amazing.
They're not checking their emails. It's not their main priority. Like, this thing's not starting for a month. They're in. One guy signed and paid, and I think that was a huge. I think that was a huge shift for me. And talking with my business mentor and just kind of paying attention to those thoughts. But I feel like I pushed through something last week, and I pushed through another level, or broke a ceiling, as my one coach likes to say. So
I love that. I love that. And hopefully, are you still feeling those good feelings into this day as well?
Yeah,
I
I'm feeling
really
great. I'm feeling amazing.
awesome. Awesome.
Amazing. Even this podcast too. Like, so, to be honest, doing this podcast has been stressful. And one of the most stressful things is finding guests to be on the show. And, same thing. I have people that I asked months ago to be on the show and they said yes, but they're busy. And I get that. So I want to confirm with them before I ask someone else, because I only have so many spots and I don't want to overbook, and that stresses me out.
Hmm.
I'm very analytical and I'm an overthinker, so I very overanalyze everything. Um,
Mm.
but I did some work on the podcast this week too. On Sunday too, I reached out to some people, and by what day is it? It's only Tuesday today. We're
It's Wednesday,
pre-recording.
actually. It's
It's Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yes.
This
Yes.
episode is pre-recorded for anyone watching live.
Mm.
Um, 3 days later, I've had 5 new people sign up for the show, and it's just the response has been overwhelming. People are excited to be on the show, and that's been a huge confidence boost too. So I think those two
Ah,
things working together. So
absolutely. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love that you've had that pivot just even for yourself this week. It's such a wonderful moment to like really land in safety like that.
it is amazing. It feels good. It also helps that the sun is up today. It's
Ah,
warming up a little bit. That feels amazing. Getting some sunshine on my skin. That feels
where
good.
are you at again?
I'm in Niagara, Ontario.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's awesome. It's rainy here today, but I love the rain.
Yeah, me too. All right. I don't know if I had a question
Mhm.
about stress and anxiety for you. Would you mind sharing, your personal experience with stress and anxiety and panic attacks, and sort of, what helped you move through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like my anxiety and my panic disorder started when I was a late teen, and I went to therapy maybe a year or so into my journey, um, and it really took a long time. This was my like I had a lot of trauma happen to me very rapidly, and then as over time as well, and I let it get me. Like it's hard to crawl out of the depths every single day,
Hmm.
and um, once it took about 8 years for the veil to lift for me to really be like, I can't live like this anymore. This is, I don't want to live this way forever. Um, and it was astonishing how long it took. But once, once that veil did lift, it was so quick to like, okay, let me learn about what I need to do. And it really also I don't think people realize the effect that other people in your life truly have on your mindset as well. I was fortunate to have amazing friends in my life who helped push me through this phase as well. Um, and they really gave me the support that I needed to advocate for myself, to stand up for my life, and to dig deep and say why do I want to move forward even, and that's really important, like realizing if you don't have something positive to look forward to, you can tend to stay in safety mode or survival mode. um, so so giving myself something to look forward to, something to work towards, really helped me get motivation, even just a little bit, like even if it doesn't have to be a whole lot of motivation every day, like even if you just do the bare minimum, like that is enough, and um, just leaning on my people and helping them helping me get through that was really tremendous as well. And then um breaking away from the toxic people that I had in my life, breaking away from the toxic habits because I was also a drinker and it was dangerous. I was not safe when I would drink. I would put myself in very dangerous situations. And after that, after I was like, I'm done drinking, like, I didn't quit cold turkey. I'm not fully sober. I still have wine, like, but I nowhere near as heavy as a drinker as I used to be. And once I stopped doing that and really started to tap into meditation, tap into um my physical body health as well. I was very overweight too. Um, Once I started healing from the inside out is when I could trust that I was in safety and yeah, therapy, a combination of therapy, friends, and the tools, the nervous system regulation tools that I learned, and patience, patience with myself. Honestly, I needed so much patience with myself to be like, it's okay, you're still worthy, like backtracking doesn't mean that you're not enough. And I also used to deal with self harm, and I um, started a non I'm starting a nonprofit right now also, um, to intervene um, self-harm thoughts, and that's in the very baby stages right now. I'm working with someone for a prototype. But so I couldn't do that anymore, right? That was another safety um, thing that my nervous system clung on to for some reason. I needed to figure out, why does that make me feel safe? Why does drinking make me feel safe? Why do toxic relationships make me feel safe? Why do trauma relationships make me feel safe? And um, they didn't. Obviously, it was beneath that, something in underneath that was what my nervous system was clinging on to, and realizing that I could find what it was trying to hold on to elsewhere was really, really tremendous as well.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And I think
Yeah, I kind of talked a lot.
no, that's good. That's what we're here for. And I like what you said about, having support and having a support system and having friends you can talk to, because I think that's really important. And I know for me sometimes, you know, not having someone understand what you're going through, like, what are you stressed out about? What are you anxious about? Like,
Yeah,
and that just makes you feel stupid. It makes you feel like there's something wrong with you. Uh,
small.
you feel so isolated. And
Yeah,
I remember times I would go to work, and also I don't drink caffeine anymore. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and I used to just live off coffee and cigarettes, but I'd already be having anxiety, and I'd go to work and I'd have like 5 coffees, and I'd be so anxious that I couldn't even set up my workstation. I'd be like dropping knives on the floor and stuff, like I couldn't even function. And then
yeah,
once I get a few things done on my list, and I'd start to calm down a little bit. But mixing that with a really high stress, high pressure job is not a good recipe at all. And another thing that's interesting that I learned, because I could be wrong, but anxiety is like a cycle with like depression, like the anxiety and all that kind of causes depression. So I'd be anxious, then I'd be depressed, and it was like this big cycle. And then I used to call, meditation was my antidepressant, which kind of helped me out of that. But the other thing that I've been trying to investigate is, what is my body trying to tell me when these things happen? Is like, what am I scared of? And I keep going back to sort of inner child work with that. Like, what is my younger self trying to protect me from? Or so that's something that I've been really um, focusing on lately. What is the young me scared of? Trying to go back to my childhood and trying to remember, or just talking to my younger self and saying like, hey, it's okay, giving them some love and saying, it's all right. So that's an interesting thing. This whole anxiety thing, I think a lot of people in this day and age, a lot of people have stress and anxiety,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
kind of normal. I think it's kind of like a normal thing.
Yeah, I think that I mean, the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that so many people struggle with anxiety, depression, panic disorder, what have you. And it's interesting that you bring up the inner child because I think that we learn um, a lot of these things, how to deal with things in our childhood from our programming and what's modeled for us as we grow up. And um, programming sometimes, um, a lot of the time, or even all of the time for some people, programming has been so misguided to the point where we can be invalidated before we even come to learn what, like, or recognize or like tune into what's true for us, you know? And so we're learning these habits and these beliefs and these behaviors when it's like, is this even what will help me? You know, are these thoughts even serving me? Um, so, like, how has your programming formed your relationship with yourself? I think is another important question to ask. Like, are these voices stopping you from going for something? Is that your voice in your head, or is it someone else's voice in your head? You
Mhm.
know, when is the earliest that you can remember thinking this belief? Like, if, like, for instance, I like my belief when I wanted to start this business was I'm gonna fail again. Like it's not gonna go anywhere because twice it's failed, you know, and like um I yeah, you have to you have to push through that. When did I start thinking that and why? And like prove like are there times in my life when I have been successful? Yes, I have overcome things in my life. Yes, I have achieved other things in my life. Tap into that instead. It's really easy to go down the negative route like you said. It's just kind of a cycle that you get stuck in, you know,
Mhm.
and there's an opposite to that, you know? There's an opposite.
Yeah, I love what you said about tapping into your past experience when you've been successful. I've started doing that recently too. Um, this one book I'm reading, I can't pronounce the title correctly, so I won't say it, but um, it's just what you said. Tap into a past experience when you were successful, and then get that feeling and carry that feeling forward into what you are visualizing for your future. So that's one thing that I've been doing a lot lately too, is visualization and visualizing what I want, trying to manifest what I want. For so much of my life, it was always negative thoughts, and I'm just manifesting, oh, this isn't going to happen, or this person isn't going to do that. So, we're
Mm,
manifesting all the time, whether we like it or not. So we might as well take control of it and and
yes,
and use it to our advantage. But that's a huge
absolutely.
one, and I just started doing that recently, like in the last couple weeks. Visualize a time. I visualized this one time. I was a chef at this private golf course, and we did a seafood night, and it was like one of the busiest nights of my life. We had the whole membership. The patio was full, and it's like the servers took everyone's orders and rang them all in at once. And it was like a special menu, the seafood menu, and I went a little bit crazy with the menu, not really thinking it was going to be that busy, and not really thinking on how we were going to pump it out. And I remember we just got so slammed. We had everyone in the kitchen was on the line. The general manager was on the other side of the line. The restaurant manager was there, and I remember I just went over and I stood in the middle, and like there were so many checks, the checks were overflowing onto the floor, the chipboard was full, and I don't know, something that's like where I thrive, um, in those situations. And something just came over me. I stayed calm. We got it out. I stayed calm with a stern voice, and we pumped it out one by one. And I remember the general manager saying, like, he's been in the restaurant industry since the 70s, and he's never seen anything like that in his life, and he just couldn't believe how I did it. So So at times when I'm feeling like I'm not enough, I go back to that and I think like, like I'm amazing. I can do all these things. I am successful. I can do all these things. And
Yeah,
so that's one that I've been doing. Uh,
that's amazing. Yeah, visualization is so powerful, so powerful. Because our minds cannot distinguish between, like, well, for threats, for instance, even, like,
mhm,
it cannot distinguish between real and imagined threats, which is like, if you're afraid of heights and you close your eyes and you think you're on the edge of, the Grand Canyon with no railing, you're going to react as if you're actually there, and it's the same thing for positive. You're going to react the same way. If you
mhm,
visualize yourself succeeding, you're going to show yourself that you can do things, and it's going to load you up with motivation
mhm.
and success.
And I think I've heard about athletes doing this for training too, and
I
they've
do.
done they've done studies where people actually, say, if, for example, shooting a basketball in the net
Yep.
versus people that aren't shooting the basketball in the net, but they're visualizing it, and the people that just visualized and didn't do it actually were better in the end than the people that were actually doing it. So that's an amazing point.
Yes. Isn't it? I read that study too, and then I heard about it in my later mentor teachings as well. And like, it's just amazing what visualization opens up for the subconscious, isn't it?
Mhm.
Like, yeah.
Yes. And another thing I wanted to say, I forgot, but I just remembered when you were talking about, pushing through your fears. And that's one thing that I've been doing a lot the past couple of years. A year ago, about a year ago, I started my business. I started my social media account. I'd never posted online before. I was terrified. If I go back and look at those videos, it's pretty funny because I just worked with a communications coach near the end of last year to help me with my public speaking and preparing for the podcast and stuff. And even at the end of that, I still wasn't feeling confident myself. And she sent me two videos. Here's a reel that you did recently, and here's one that you did 6 months ago. Like totally different person. But when I saw that, I was like, wow, what a difference. She's like, in this one, you're alive. In this one, there's a huge wall in front of you. But I guess the point I want to make is there's pushing through and facing your fears, which I was doing. I was doing it. I was pushing through it, but I wasn't doing anything to regulate my nervous system. I
Mm.
wasn't really doing any work with that. I just thought you just had to keep pushing through. But I don't think, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that you can't positive think your way out of the negative cycle. Honestly, I think you
Yeah.
also need proof, you need patience, you need intent, and um, you know, I think that you can push through some things, but it's like you said, it's not like, how were you feeling when you were
Exactly.
just pushing through,
I was
right?
just
Like,
pushing through to do it. I was pushing through
yeah,
to do it, but I wasn't doing anything about how I was feeling or thinking, I guess is what I'm saying.
exactly, exactly. So is that actually healing, right? Is that right? Yeah. So I think that it's still powerful. Honestly, I don't think that that push through should be disregarded by any means at all. It doesn't mean that you weren't doing the right thing for yourself at the time at all. I think that it's still to be revered that you still kept going. Um, but I think that it's powerful that you also had the wherewithal to be like, this isn't, yeah, I'm pushing through, but this is not how I want to feel. And
Mhm,
tapping to, like, how do I want to feel? What does that look like for me? And what's one small step that I can take to get there? Because if people think like you need these big miraculous steps, but small hinges swing big doors, and you really don't need breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. You just need small intentional steps to lead you to the life that you want to go. And like you said, you will see it over time. You can look back 6 months, from now and be like, holy cow. It's so different. It doesn't feel that different, but then when you see the difference, it's it's tremendous.
Yeah, the proof is a big one too. You can, because
Yeah.
they say, visualize your future, visualize what you want, believe in yourself and feel it. But for me, I have a hard time fully believing or trusting without some sort of proof. Um,
Yourself or others or both?
oh, just myself. I
Mm.
guess, believing in myself. And I guess this would be, almost talking about manifesting as well too. Like if you believe something's going to happen, then it's going to happen. But until something actually happens to give you that proof that it works, it's hard to kind of believe it and trust it. And
Yeah.
I know for myself, I guess I manifested my current job that I have now, a sales job. When I left the kitchen, I went from being an executive chef at a high end winery to being a breakfast cook. And I apologize, I've said this story before if anyone's hearing it again that's listening, but I got a job as a breakfast cook just because I wanted weekends off and I wanted nights off, and I was done. And I didn't want to do another. I didn't want to do another summer in the kitchen, and I wanted to leave before the summer because I didn't want to leave them in the shit. So,
Mhm.
and I told my wife that I'm going to have a sales job within, what did I say? Within 3 months was my goal. I'm going to have a sales job within 3 months. And my wife is freaking out, obviously, because I went from making, almost 100 grand a year to being a breakfast cook. But I didn't care. I just wanted to see my kids and get out of there. But 6 weeks later, I got a call from a colleague, and he said, "Hey, man, I heard you're looking for a sales job. I'm just about to give my notice. Do you want me to put in a recommendation for you?" And I said, "Yes, please." I got the job. I started the next week. So that was the first time I actually had proof that the universe has got my back, and I just have to trust that things are going to work out because they will.
Yeah. 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 I think that's really, really important. Like noticing what does trust look like in yourself, you know, and when you realize that, then it'll be easier to lean on and tune into, and it'll be easier to lean on your inner intuition rather than external validation and external forces.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And intuition's another one of my favorite topics. We could do a whole other show just
Yeah.
on that. I could talk about
Right.
that. Amazing,
Yes.
Ashley. Well, we're coming
Thank you.
near the end of our time here. So before we wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to add?
Um, just to really, if you feel like you're stuck in the same patterns, just pause and pivot and ask yourself, what am I protecting myself from? What does trust look like in myself? When have I been successful before? I have achieved things. I know you can do it. I personally believe in you. I just really want to thank everyone for listening to me talk today, and thank you so much for having me today. This has been such an honor, and it's been a wonderful conversation.
Amazing. Thank you. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you, Ashley?
Yeah, I am on Instagram, so at Coach Ash Coop, and I also have a website, coachingbyashley.com. And they'll find information about my 12-week program there called Nourishing the Roots. And this is where we really dig deep into uh, healing their nervous system and helping them find their own inner intuition call. I also do personalized meditation audios on there. So, yeah.
Amazing. I love your meditations.
Oh, thank you so much.
Beautiful. Well, that was so great, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
You too. And for everyone listening, I'll include Ashley's information in the show notes below. And as always, if you'd like to connect with me, you could reach out to me on Instagram at transformative_pathways. You can also find my link tree in the show notes below, where you'll have access to all my social media, my email list, and my private community. And if you're ready to take this work even deeper, I invite you to check out The Journey Within, my 12-week coaching program designed to help you break free from stress, self-doubt, and feeling stuck so you can live a life with more confidence, clarity, and purpose. Simply click the link below or go to jasondoby.com for more details. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you could like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite listening platform. And if you'd like to support the show, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It would mean so much to us and also help the show reach more listeners. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
This has been the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Tune in each week for more insights, inspiring stories, and transformative journeys. Until then, keep exploring the path to keep your best self. Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.